And we are live. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Nooners of Ice and Fire. I'm Johnny B. Crazy, and I have two special guests on with me today, Lawrence Corner and John St. Baptiste. We're going to be talking about the religions of A Song of Ice and Fire. And today we're going to cover the three main ones, the old gods, the faith of the seven, and Relore. This will be a 2 or 3 part series.
Did he just
Without
cut out?
further ado, I'm going to let Lauren introduce herself. Lauren, tell everyone about yourself and tell them where they can find you. You great poet, you.
Oh, you sweet talking Alabama man. You're so nice. But I'm Lauren. I'm from Lauren's Corner. You can go see my channel there, and I do a lot of different things, mostly literary based around poetry. I also started a new series called Asking Questions, which these two lovely gentlemen have kindly been a part of. Please do go check them out. I'm also on Twitter at Catalica. I have a website, stuff like that. You can find my links on there. And yeah, I'm from Scotland.
And without another further ado, last but not least, the great John St. Baptiste, the musical legend and the owner of thousands and thousands of books. He is also in the Citadel as we speak. John, go ahead and let everybody know who you are
Hi,
and where they can find you.
I'm John St. Baptiste. You can find me under John St. Baptiste on YouTube, and you can find me at Music Makes the People Come Together on Twitter. I share music with people. I try to encourage people to share music with each other and share music with me. And I also, as Johnny said, have a couple of books. A lot of them involve religion. So that's why I thought that this would be a really cool group discussion to have today. And kind of threw myself into it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, you two. And I'm going to go ahead and give a little shout out to people in the chat. What's up, Dog Sidious and Bubba Husky and BBM and Reese and Dog Sidious, I think I already said, but Eduardo Blanco, thank you for stopping by, my friend. Can't wait for this chat. So, the first thing we're going to do, we'll just go ahead and get into the old gods, the paganism as you speak, or if you speak, or the gods of nature.
Animism.
Let's go with you, John. What's your thoughts on that? How does it relate to real world religions? And is there any connotation? Can it help us understand the books better?
Okay, so from my understanding, and one has to keep in mind that we have not gone through all the books yet. They've not all been written yet. Uh, the old gods are animistic. They're animism is a concept of religion where things in nature have a spiritual component. So there's a spirit of this tree, there's a spirit of this rock, there's a spirit of this river. And the old gods, the only ones that are ever mentioned anyway, are uh, the weirwood trees. Now, I think there are more than that. I think the ironwood trees, which are the ebony trees, there's the ebony and ivory uh, faces and doors on the temple in Bravos and in a few other places. And also, you have white trees with red leaves that have psychoactive components, and you have black trees with blue leaves that have psychoactive components, namely Shade of the Evening. Which,
Right. Oh,
how
sorry.
spoilery can I get here?
Oh, you can go spoiler. I just want to throw in that a lot of these religions worship a grove of trees as well, in
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of the
absolutely.
pagan religions. So, yeah,
Uh,
spoil away.
um, you have druidic uh, concepts. You have modern Wiccan concepts. You have a lot of Native American religions that all have this honors for trees. Even in Norse mythology, you have the not necessarily worship, but reverence for the ash tree, which is holy to Votan or Odin, whichever term you'd like to use. But I think a lot of people don't think about the trees from which the shade of the evening comes, which you have the weirwoods, and let's throw Jojen paste out the window, and Bran in the cave just had weirwood paste, which was made from weirwoods, and it kind of opened up his mind, which, if you've ever done psychoactive, psychotropic drugs, can do. And then you have the shade of the evening, which kind of has the same effect. And if you have not read the Forsaken chapter, which was pre-released, this was probably kind of spoilery, but you get into some really serious Shade of the Evening stuff. You also do with Daenerys and the Clash of the Kings when she's with the sorcerers, and these are gods that are more, the god is part of the thing that it comes from. It's not an external deity, it's almost an internal deity.
Can I just say
go ahead.
That for me, the connotations of the weirwood paste and like the other one that the warlocks use, I can't remember what it's called, is Shade of the Evening. It's very similar to peyote, which Johnny was talking about the other day there, and also ayahuasca, which are used in two different parts of the world, but they have pretty much the same effect, and they're used for like cleansing and opening the mind and things like that. And also, and also with the spiritual aspect of like worshipping the trees and worshipping the earth, and like taking a part of that into yourself as you trying to get as close to your God as you possibly can, and use the God's gifts that are at your disposal, or be able to take advantage of in some way, to clarify something that's already within you that you cannot see. And certainly that could be said for Bran. He's meant to see a lot of things, but he doesn't. And yes, you can make the argument about Jojen paste, and it needs like another active ingredient in it mixed with a weirwood to make it work fully. And there has to be some sort of sacrifice to it, because there is sacrifice to the weirwoods themselves, and even the children are sacrificing themselves. They're joining the woods. They're becoming part of that. And they're doing it happily, and it used to be that way. And you can say the same for the Norse religions. They had, I think it was 5 yearly or something like that, or every 9 years they would have like sacrifices. But in most drugs, there's always at least a psychoactive component as well as a medicinal component, and you can see cannabis is another form of that as well.
They took mushrooms a lot as well. That was their thing, was the mushroom. So it's been around, and I don't know, we won't get into this today, but I don't know if you've heard of the stoned ape hypothesis, and that psychedelics are one of the reasons that we evolved so fast as far as our thinking and opening our minds. But it's an interesting topic. We'll delve into that later. Yes, as far as the sacrifices goes, that's a really big deal, and we can get into that. There's so many. I mean, technically, a pagan religion can mean so many different things, and there's a mixture with the Children of the Forest. And trying to think right now, but I can't think of there's another group that kind of practices the same. But yeah, I don't know. What were your thoughts on?
The trees obviously
sacrifice?
need blood. The trees obviously need blood. I mean, it's alluded to so often in the books. You know, Ned cleaning his sword, and people dying, people being buried by the weirwood trees, people, uh, their bodies being left by the weirwood trees, even if they are buried. They're, the weirwood trees need blood. And that's a very animistic concept of a god, where that deity needs a sacrifice. They need a blood sacrifice. Um, it it I mean it goes back to, all your religions started in an animistic concept. If you read Campbell, and in that animistic concept, these gods need a sacrifice to bring you rain, or make the crops grow, or keep winter away.
And the children with their dances and singing as well reminds me of Native Americans, and also, the whole sacrifice, and you can almost connotate it to the Mayans, because in a sense, there's also many ties with Druidism, and I don't know. That's a different part. Go ahead, Lauren. I know you want to say something on it.
Like, the minute you mentioned Mayans, like, they did sacrifice, but they sacrificed by the hundreds, right? And sometimes the thousands. And I mean, I think they had population control pretty down. And I don't believe that. Yeah, some of their practices are similar to the old gods, and some of the more darker ones within A Song of Ice and Fire. But I wouldn't agree that there are a lot of core things that have taken for it. I think that the old gods are more to do with Norse, to do with like Wiccan and pagan stuff, mostly pagan. But I would say that like a lot of religions are stemming from paganism, because each one took a little bit something from it, especially Christianity. And Christianity has so many septs. And when I say septs, I mean offshoots and branches and different stories and tales to tell. And they're all linking back to that. But even Scotland and the Celts, like, and the Picts and stuff like that, they all had similarities within their paganism before Christianity came riding through with the Romans.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say when I had a brain fart earlier. Was talking about the skin changers of Native American lore, and then even in Europe, you have the werewolf that comes from more of the paganistic cultures, which ties into warging. Any thoughts on that? Either one of you.
Lauren, please go first.
So thoughts on like skin changing. There's a lot of that. I think that, yeah, it does come with the Native Americans thing for spirit animals. And also you could say within paganism or Wiccan that we'd have familiars. I know for a fact, from practicing a little bit of Wiccanism when I was younger, that a familiar is not just a pet, it is someone that is part of you, is part of your life, and represents core concepts of your being, and will protect you and will be there with you. And as much like the dire wolves are to the Starks, right? My cat Gypsy, who's currently in her wee bed here, that's my familiar. I've had her since she was a kitten, and she is quite pleasant. She's very quiet. She likes a good cuddle at night, right? And she is very protective, and she knows when someone's done something bad to me, because if they come in the house and they go to pet her, she'll turn her back and snub them. And this other cat had ran into my house and she beat the crap out of the cat. I've never heard her growl ever. But I was angry and so was she. And you find out, like, within the skin changers, that they create a connection the warg and whatnot, can create connection with their animal, and part of them becomes them, and part of that animal becomes them. It's a two-way street. It's not a one-way thing where I control you. I can slip into you, I can be a part of you, but you must be a part of me and my soul at the same time. And that's a very, very deep notion. It's like you could say that you love someone, but you'll never have a part of their soul inside you. As like a warg will, though, you can see the connections with them.
Right. Even, the Stark children are just amazing. Anyway, the fact that all 5 of them are wargs and one is a green seer. Well, you got all 6, right? And it's an amazing thing how we can connect with our animals and that feeling, and that has to be some of where this comes from, at least in the lore, in my opinion. Like, how do you think, let's say in season 8 of Game of Thrones, that the old gods clashing with R'hllor, and we're going to kind of segue into R'hllor here, but how do you think that's going to go down? Because it seems like a battle of religions in season 8. At least that's part of it. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's a battle of religions, really. I think it's a battle of peoples, right?
I mean, no,
You've got
right.
that wrong.
But
I'm gonna outright disagree with you. I don't think it's a battle of religions, right? It's a battle of peoples, right? You've got one certain type of people. You've got one faction of people. You've got another faction of people that are fighting with other factions in their section of the world, right? And need to get their shit together, because the other people that are coming down from the north have got their shit together and are steadily gaining more of their shit together, and they're planning to wipe out everything if they don't get what they want. Like, the wall was built for a reason, and it's the same here in Scotland. I keep saying this: the wall in A Song of Ice and Fire is inspired by Hadrian's Wall in Scotland, which wasn't built to keep the Scots out of England. It was built to keep the Romans out of Scotland, because they couldn't handle the Picts, they couldn't handle the Scots at the time, and they gave this divide because they managed to conquer most of the world, but when they got to Scotland, they had to stop. England kind of accepted them, and then they stopped, and Hadrian went back to Rome. He failed his mission. Eventually, Hadrian's Wall came down, and then Antonine came back over about a century or two later. He built a second wall just a couple of 100 miles down from where the original wall is. I don't think it's necessarily about religion at this point within the story itself. Maybe within the TV show, that's not a factor. Maybe within the books, it might still be a factor. Or there's many different arguments for it.
It's the driving force. I mean, Bran is one of the old gods, and Melisandre is a fiery priestess that's trying to convert everyone. There's definitely
I don't think
a
she's
big
trying
play
to
with
convert
religion.
everyone. I think she's trying to do what she thinks is right, and obviously she's made mistakes, and we can see that by Shireen. But in the end, no one has currently proven that Bran is the Night King or is against anything. Like, you have the old gods and new gods, and then you've got R'hllor and stuff. But eventually, in the final fight, it's going to be those two having to man against whatever's coming down from the north. And they don't technically have a religion. We don't know much about them, so we can't necessarily say that. And the religions have been coexisting so far in Westeros for however many long. You've got the old gods, you've got Faith of the Seven, and you've got R'hllor. It's been about for a while, but it never really took hold in Westeros until recently, and that's only because of political unrest and upset.
Right, but their whole mission going to Westeros is to convert as many people as possible. That was Thoros' mission. That was Melisandre's original mission, was to convert. Well, she went over there for the visions, but I'm getting echo. I guess I agree with you on certain part. I guess agree to disagree. What are your thoughts on it, John?
I think that religion is a backdrop. Um, it's a factor that figures in. Can you hear me well? I took my earbuds out. You hear me okay? All right.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm getting the echo because you took the earbuds out.
I can put it back in. I don't think it's the driving force though. I we live in a society right now of religious differences, and sorry, let me try that again. We live in a society right now of religious differences, and arguably, for the most part, most of the people in this world get along with each other. Um, for me, what I find interesting about this topic is just the correlation and the differences between, it all goes back to that phrase George loves to use so much, which is different paths to the same castle.
Right, right. Do you think there will be a main religion at the end, or a new religion will come of this from these legends?
No, no, I don't. I don't think this is Dune. I don't think there will be a great jihad where everyone has to worship the one single deity. Uh, if I spoiled the Dune books for anybody, sorry. It's kind of obvious from the first page, but no, I don't think there will be. I think there are different ways that different societies look at things. I do think Melisandre not only comes from a well are we done with the old gods? Because
Yeah, we're segueing right into R'hllor. Just go for it.
okay,
Unless
we're in R'hllor.
Lauren has something to say. Do you have something to say on the old gods? Yeah, let Lauren finish up what she was going to say, and
Please.
then you can go ahead, John.
No, I had more to add to the old gods, honestly.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Lauren, please speak.
Okay, so you were asking about the well, we see a rise of a new religion after all this. I don't think so. Like I'm agreeing with Baptiste here. Like I very much doubt that. There's already enough religions as it is, and after it, I think there will be at least some modicum of freedom of choice, and respect for all. I do think that the legend of John and Danny will become something, maybe in 1,000 years' time, and the history of Westeros, where the old gods are lost, as the children of the forest have mentioned and say, like, we used to be here and now we're lost because the men have taken over, and history repeats itself, and that's what happens. Old legends become new faiths and whatnot, but I don't think it will happen immediately. Give it time, and it would. I mean, if George decides to do like another few books that are set maybe a couple of years, 100 years in the future or whatever, like I don't know why he would do that, but he can write them. He probably would. Then it'd be good to see the progress of where Westeros is and where the families now sit. I think R'hllor would still be a thing, but I think it might amalgamate in with Faith of the Seven and not the old gods, because the old gods are very different to Faith of the Seven, even though there's lots of connotations, because R'hllor and Faith of the Seven have a very kind of Christian-esque way about it, and how the priests are set up and the robes and things like that. As for Melisandre, I think she does know that she has a purpose, but she doesn't know clearly what it is, and she's obviously been alive for such a long time. Now she doesn't know where she's going. And as for the conversion, I don't think that's necessarily for the religion itself. I think that's to grow an army for the others, the whites and the White Walkers that are coming from beyond the wall. And they know something's coming. They just don't understand what it is necessarily. They've only got prophecy just like everyone else has, and everyone's flying by the seat of their pants at this point. So I don't think another religion will come up, but legends will live on pretty far and wide.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. John, I know you had some thoughts on that, or on the old god still.
Oh well, just my one point I would like to make out that religions die hard, beliefs die hard. I certainly don't see one religion taking over. I mean, you think about it, the North has worshipped these gods for, I think it's 7,000 years after the Andal invasion, and they're still like, no, we're still not doing your thing. And we never get to be called knights. We never get to, or any of that, but we don't really need that because we have our deities that we hold on to. And I, I, I don't see one religion taking over another one. Um, for me, the interesting thing is just the comparison between the different stages in if you go by the Campbellian model, the different stages, and especially if you go by the model of Graham, who wrote the Golden Bough, the different stages of religious development. You have animism and then polytheism, and then and don't get me wrong, he was a very socially biased person, so there's a lot of bathwater to be thrown out with the baby on that. But I I don't see one specific religion taking over. More than anything, the thing that interests me is the correspondence, as you were talking about the Mayans, with the blood sacrifice, and with the need for that something such as blood or life to be given up.
Yeah, only death can pay for life, and I know that's not a
Exactly.
saying up there, but it is a saying.
Somewhere else
Yeah,
that we're talking about next week.
yeah. Do you think nature will be less taken for granted after all of this is over with? And by the way, I'm just asking really thought-provoking questions here. I don't necessarily believe there will be a one religion, but Valar Morghulis. Thank you for the coffee cup. That's an awesome coffee.
Valar Dohaeris.
I'm glad you can pronounce that right.
Hey, you ever listen to Tool? This is necessary. Life feeds on life, feeds on life, feeds on life.
Yeah,
Or if you want to be a little more humorous about it, you can go South Park and talk about the circle of poop.
Oh, yeah, exactly. On the point, yeah, the name. So I guess we can segue to the lore, unless you have more thoughts on the old gods. I know, I just asked, Lauren, what do you think about after the devastation, nature being appreciated more instead of the materialistic?
I think that's very possible. But then again, George does write about the greed of men and how like the first men came over and they started chopping down all the trees and stuff like that. And then you've got like the ironwoods who have to look after like their specific grove of trees that are special, and they are the best kind of wood to be making ships with and tools and stuff like that, and are very well sought after. Um, but I don't know. I don't know if men will change their ways unless there's a certain democracy that comes in and they put certain political means and laws and that in place to say, okay, you can't cut down this many trees and you need to do this and you need to do that. But I think something like that may be passed down. But again, it's humanity. You never really know. For every couple of good people, there's always that one bad person or one person who has a different point of view that will instigate and challenge the norm or these healthy views or whatever you want to call them. I do have a question though, right? Since we're between Rolor and the old gods, who do you think is crueler when it comes to sacrifice? Rolor and the Red Priests, or the old gods, the Weirwoods, and like Northmen and the children?
There can't be much worse than burning alive if that's how you're going to be sacrificed. So I would take the old gods any day. Take a good old swipe from ice right to the neck any day. Of course, didn't they hang the entrails in the trees as well? Now, we don't know exactly how they were sacrificed back then. We don't know if they were peacefully sacrificed. So that is a good question, but anything's almost better than being burned alive, I would imagine.
See, the hanging of the entrails thing is actually a Norse tradition because of Odin. He hung in the trees for like 9 days and 9 nights. And that is hardcore in that religion. It's part of the journey, the trip, the
That's
experience.
actually where tinsel on the Christmas tree comes from.
That's a nice fact, actually. I'll remember that the next time I pull my Christmas tree out from its cupboard, where I never. It goes in looking like Christmas and it comes out looking like Christmas.
By the way, Father Christmas might have a gift for you, Lauren. I think I told you that before.
Yeah, some old Jon Snow right here is planning to send me some books. He's going to ride his dragon over to Scotland and drop it like through my wee letterbox.
I would ride a kraken, not a dragon.
Even better. Even better. I'm still waiting. I want the Night King to come way past beyond the wall and raise a kraken from the depths, an ice kraken. I've been saying this for years. I want it to happen, right? Because it's said that he can do that. If he can raise ice spiders, he can raise mammoths and bears and stuff. If he can get down to near the Iron Islands and raise a dirty great big kraken for the deep, a white kraken, that would be so amazing. And if you've seen like a giant lion white as well, like out from nowhere, like just get all the sigils and raise them into whites, that would blow the minds. I think Euron would be really pish scared if you saw a kraken come out through the water and like attempt to swallow the silence.
You just went super high fantasy there, like super high. That's like, but I dig it. Any thoughts on that?
That's some Ed Greenwood shit right there.
So we're going to kind of talk about the lore and Zoroastrianism and the Cathars, who are also kind of like lore. They were like a sect of Christian. Yeah, they had the good and the great other type thing. I just want to know your thoughts on lore, comparisons you see in other religions today, and what effect it'll have. Kind of the same spiel as last time. We'll just get into it.
Well, you were talking about earlier, and we had to go back to the old gods because there was a lot about the old gods that still need to be discussed. I mean, I could talk about the old gods for a month or two, but because I'm kind of long-winded. Blame it on all the Tolkien that I've read. But so there, you were asking the question specifically though about Melisandre. I don't think that all Relorists are religious zealots. I think that Melisandre is a religious zealot. She's a zealot for Relor. There are some people who believe this and practice this and think this, and then there are other people who need to ram it down somebody's throat. And I think she's coming from that school of thought, I guess one would call it. But yeah, with the religion of Relor, there's definitely that Catharic influence. There's that Manchian influence. Also, there's Mitraism, and just in general Zoroastrian religion, where it's not in Christianity. There's always this given concept that God was the creator, so he's going to win the war. And so you have God and you have Satan. And God's going to win the war because he was the creator of the universe. Whereas in the Zoroastrian concept, which has fed itself so much into a lot of forms of modern Christianity, you have this dualistic concept where you have both the antagonist and the protagonist, and they're pretty equally matched. And the night is dark and full of terrors, and it spawns this whole concept that anyone who's not like me, or it necessarily does spawn this concept, but it can spawn this concept that anyone who's not like me is my enemy.
Yeah, and it's a lot like the Spanish Inquisition days. I just want to throw in that they kind of tie in with Christianity a little bit, especially with the burning of people and the burning of non-believers. Just want to throw that in. Keep going, y'all are doing fantastic. Lauren, you're next.
By the way, answering your question from my perspective, yes, I would take the old gods over R'hllor any day. That's just life feeding on life. There's an entire difference between that and sacrificing people. Sacrificing people in a what's the way I'm trying to as a form of appeasing a god, as opposed to a form of appeasing life. I mean, a lot of people like to gussy up a lot of older, less commonly practiced religions, and no, they were cruel. I mean, there was a reason that people were really scared of these people, but their whole concept was of life feeding life, as opposed to life feeding, staving off death. If that makes any sense.
No, yeah, totally. For me, R'hllor kind of reminds me of like a reverse Salem witch trials. So you've got people getting burned at the stake as a sacrifice. But the irony is you're getting burned by what they call as a red witch. Melisandre's referred often to as the red witch. So you've got, instead of the witches being burnt at the stake, you've got the witches burning the non-believers at the stake. So you've got that. As for like Melisandre being like a zealot, I would like to add in as well that maybe if she is a zealot, she was given to that as a young child, and she was taught and born into that, and has obviously lived a very long life, as I said previously, to the point where that becomes her only thing. There has been points where her belief has wavered, and that happens to pretty much everybody. You question your life, you question your motives and what you were doing, but because she's part of such a hardcore religion, from what we have seen, and their practices, their teachings, and how they function, it's very hard to question that judgment. And you can't really question it when someone says to you, you know, the night is dark and full of terrors, because it is. But the day is light and is full of terrors as well, and shadows. And the R'hllor is the religion of light and shadows, fire and life that lights the way in the darkness. You can say that yes, it has its good points, but it's always got its dark side. And I think George R. R. Martin puts that across very well when he's talking about any religion within A Song of Ice and Fire, it's not just, oh, this is a bad religion and this is a decent religion. I mean, they've all got their ups and their downs and their dark sides. And I also think that comes to a point where it's your own perception to the individual, what you've been brought up with, what you perceive as right and wrong, what is dark and what is light to you, which is good and which is bad. And again, you were mentioning like the Faceless Man's temple. It's got the big weirwood door and the ebony door on the other side. Again, that reminds me of the yin yang, and it having certain connotations with dark and light, good and evil. A certain balance needs to be had in all things. And that's why we have such a competing element of religions and factions and points of views and moralities. From Melisandre's point of view, she'll be thinking she's doing the right thing, and that her God, her faith, will point her in the right direction and keep her on the path on where she's meant to go. There's a grand plan that's been laid out. Rolor is watching, etc. And you can see the old gods in the trees as well, where you've got the weirwoods see everything, they take note of everything, they can jump forward, jump back. There's a certain time element in that as well. But definitely Rolor reminds me of like Salem witch trials, but it's just in reverse. It's
But yeah, they practice Wicca. They practice Wicca. So yeah, I was just didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, like they practice Wicca more or less. I would say if you're going to classify, it might be a darker side of it, because you have your light witches, your dark witches. They all come in different levels, and that I think that's entwined with a lot of the religions in A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, it's a mixture of religions, a mixture of the histories, are just a mixture of things. That's what I like about it. It's a mixture of all kind of historical and archaeological and religious evidence that's put together into one construct that you can really see all of George R. R. Martin's influences, and I really like that about it. Go ahead, John. I know you wanted to say something.
No, I how do I put this across properly? I think that the religion of Aurelor, the way it's portrayed, expresses all of the reasons that so many people in the world nowadays have such an issue with the monotheistic Abrahamic religions, which are three of the five major religions of the world. Is that there's this concept of we are so much better than you. We're right and you're wrong. And it all, I think, stems from that dualistic concept that Raylerism has, which conceptually and ideally stems from that Zoroastrian concept. And I'm not against Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism is a current religion. There are people who practice it, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about them or their religious beliefs, but I think that dualistic concept feeds into a lot of the problems that we have in our world nowadays, with people thinking you are the other. I think this way, and you think that way, and because I think this way and you think that way, we can't work together. We can't cohese.
Like, there's a lot to be said for Satanism as well. Like, a lot of people don't understand it, but it's a thing about following the left-hand path, which is do your will as you will type deal.
Are you talking about like real Satanism or Anton LaVey's Satanism?
I was talking about
Because Anton LaVey Satanism is just like, hey, do whatever you want, and we use Satan as an icon to prop ourselves up to do whatever we want. Whereas if you're talking about like real Satanism, basically you're an Indians fan. You know the team's gonna lose, but I mean they're still playing baseball.
I think I was talking about the one that's propped up by Satan, but I think I was thinking more along the lines of
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Lucifer was truly and firstly an angel before he was cast out. And he was cast out because he had free will, he had a free mind. And I mean, there's different versions of it, obviously, but he wanted humans to have a certain amount of free will and knowledge and stuff like that, and that's how the tree of knowledge and Eve and Adam stuff comes together. But God didn't want that, so he chucked them out, and then became the tempter, and then got a bad rap. But even the best of angels that were and now demons are quite mixed up. But wouldn't you be pissed off if you were kicked out your own home as well by your own father and disowned?
Well, not just that. Have you ever seen the movie Dogma?
Yes.
Okay, so God comes up to you one day and says, I made this fallible, you're perfect, but I made this fallible monkey that lies, cheats, steals, treats people horribly, can choose to believe in me or not. And you have to bow down to him. Yeah, I can see the Hebrew. That's why Paradise Lost is probably my favorite book of all time. I can see, I can entirely understand the hubris behind Lucifer. Absolutely. Completely. I mean, wouldn't you do the same thing in his place?
If I had feelings, yes, more than likely to be God's favorite and to be the right-hand man of God, so to speak, and to be
right. And you're told you're supposed to bow down to these stupid apes. I mean, that's what we would look like to angels, is stupid apes. And so I can completely understand the concept. I absolutely.
See that you mentioned Dogma, and you just mentioned that right now. The first thing that came from me to my mind from that movie is the minute Alan Rickman pulls down his trousers and they're like, and there's nothing here. Frankly, in heaven we find sex a joke, and apparently you do too.
As I understand it on your earth, you do too. Yes.
But yeah, man. Well, see, it depends on your interpretation. But the serpent wasn't Satan. That's why the serpent has no legs, according to which scriptures you're reading. I'm not trying to get controversial here, but man was a sinner before the fall of Lucifer, and it's not. And Lucifer gets all the blame for man's sins as well, so that doesn't help his feelings at all either. So it's
one of my favorite things in I'm sorry for interrupting you, Lauren. In Sandman, I forget which book it is. It's book number 4. I can't remember the title of it, but Lucifer gives up the keys to hell. And he says, they blame me. They say the devil made me do it. I never made any person do anything ever. They did it of their own volition. Hell was bad enough when it was separation from God. But then all these masochists come down here saying, whip me, burn me, stab me, beat me, punish me for my sins. Yeah, we make our own hells.
And pay me for it.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. We definitely make our own hell, and if there is a hell, I believe it's somewhere where we judge ourselves. Unless you're like a sociopath or egomaniacal, and think you're awesome. But I think that would be the hardest thing is to judge yourself after your death. If you're a decent person, because looking back on it, you would probably the guilt of your soul would probably
Oh yeah.
crush you. It would crush me to try to judge myself.
I'm hoping for reincarnation.
That's what I'm
Like,
hoping for.
I'm not expecting anything like super awesome, but I'd be okay with that. I mean, I've had some spooky bitches. And when I say spooky bitches, I mean tarot card readings and stuff like that done. And they're like, they'll tell me like I used to be a white witch, I used to be a nurse in the war, and that I used to be an Egyptian priestess or like a servant just under that. And one of my partners was actually my male equivalent or something like that. It's just weird stuff. So if I can get more cool stuff like that as I go on, so I'm on writer right now, female. I look okay. Like I can't ask for much more than this. Like where do I go next after this? Like that would be cool. I know in Buddhism and that you go through a certain amount of reincarnations till you figure out what's what with your soul and you reach enlightenment. You hit a certain level and you don't get reincarnated again. You just become like this spiritual presence of some sort. I'd be really selfish. I'd be like, I don't want to do that. Why would I want to do that? Like that would be me. But obviously, none of us know if that's possible because none of us know truly what death is. And if there is anything after that, or it's just like Jon Snow says, there's nothing. It was black. It was empty. It was hollow. Why did you bring me back?
Yeah, perfect. You ended on that. Great minds think alike. This is my question. Are there really gods in Westeros, or are there really gods at all in the Song of Ice and Fire? Now, George said that the gods. George said the gods in the Song of Ice and Fire are as real as the gods are in the real world. You can take that a few ways. So I'm just going to let you go with that hot topic right there.
Yeah, I'll take this first. I think in some way there is. Nature's a god, obviously. And you've got some of the older peoples of the lands. But I think within Westeros and within Planetos itself, politics is a god, and money is a religion. Because the Iron Bank will have its due, one way or another. As for actual gods, we're never going to see a proper god appear. Like, boom, I'm out, I'm here. I think the closest you'll get to see to some sort of god with power is the Night King. And his Bran, maybe. And unless we see some real high level shit from a high priest of the lore, because we haven't really seen other priests apart from Melisandre, the other one from the temple. Oh, where is it? The Temple of the Hearty. I can't remember what it's called.
John echoed us. He left us and echoed us.
I know. Echo. I had to take advantage of that. But yeah, like there's that. We've only seen that, but we haven't seen anything else. And the only thing of lore that we've seen is the badass one only Beric ride the Lightning Lord Dondarrion with his flame sword. I crap myself when I seen that like last season. I was like, yes, get it. Him and Davos are my two favorite like characters that are up there, that like are low level characters. But these things are still to be challenged, but they're the only two that I can physically see being actual gods in Westeros, as Night King, and if we ever see a high priest from the lore. But apart from that, money is a religion. That's the Iron Bank, and politics as well, with how like the kingship works, the lords work, and all that sort of thing.
You got your YouTube page on, John?
Yeah, I just had to run the
Is the
loop.
sound on?
Yes.
Turn it. That's why we're getting an echo. If you could turn it down or mute it, like on the.
My YouTube. No,
yeah.
my YouTube is it's on. I think it's on mute.
Just double check.
That better?
Hello. That's it.
Hello.
As well.
Okay,
That's a
sorry
little
about
better.
that.
It's a little better. Whatever it is, I don't know. We always have problems with these hangouts. I'm sorry, folks. We'll get it back on track here. Lauren, help me out.
We
Where
aren't
were we
allowed
at?
to take the title of most unprofessional live stream because that's already been taken.
I'm sure it has been taken.
But-
I'm sure there's some live streams.
No, it has. Citadel of Hype has already taken that, and we don't want to copyright infringe, so we'll go with second most unprofessional.
So we were talking about lore.
Yeah.
Now, in the books, it seems like, well, okay, it seems like we're going to get the Fiery Hand in season 8, and Melisandre's coming with R'hllor. Do you see that religion as conflicting with the Northerners once she gets there to try to help? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
Go with it.
I think I think it's going to be like the Romans moving into Ireland, or trying to move into Ireland, and moving into Brittany, as they called it. I think there's going to be a huge conflict. And I think that Melisandre being wrong is going to be the Chekhov's gun to keep a religious war from happening. Right? Chekhov's gun? Did you get that right, Lauren? Okay, I thought so. Couldn't remember which Russian writer I was talking about.
Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
I get those mixed up as well. Don't worry. I get Deus Ex Machina and Chekhov's gun mixed up. I'm like, why can't you just call it what it is? Because you're confusing the shit out of me. I mean, every writer has a problem. Okay, we're not perfect at everything. Not all of us know what onomatopoeia is, or a fucking semicolon and spore. Not all of us know how to stop using and so frequently. Or even just inserting too many like commas here, that, or anywhere, or not using the full stop properly. So that's fine if you get confused.
But no, I don't think this series, show or book, is going to turn into a religious war. For me, the interest is just like having taken comparative theology and studying personally comparative theology so much. For me, the interest is just the correlations between real world religions and these self-created religions that Martin has given us. But also, I think after Stannis fails, which is pretty much, well, definitely a book or a show given, and I think probably a book given. I think Melisandre's going to kind of have what when I was growing up, my grandma used to call a come to Jesus moment, and ironically, and she's gonna be like, okay, well, maybe this zealotry is not gonna quite work. and we need to work together. No, don't get me wrong. I don't see some, you know, uh, everybody gets along hand holding ending by any means.
Well, I
But
I can kind of see, not in all of Planetos, but in Westeros, religion kind of being stamped out, that it wouldn't even be that important anymore after everything that's happened. It'd be more important to, I think knowledge is going to be a little scarce. I think a lot of things.
I would actually say to you that religion would become more of a ceremonial thing rather than an actual hardcore thing. Like you find that here in the UK, where there is still a lot of heavy religious people, but it's more used in a way for ceremony, especially when it comes to like the Queen and royalty and stuff like that. There's certain pageantry that needs to happen for everything to be set and official in the hearts and minds and souls of everybody that's in the country and who is in the Commonwealth and who's interested in stuff. For people outside of that, it will just be a grand show, a once in a lifetime experience, or once in a generation, or two. I think it'll become something like that. A democracy might take over. I'm pretty sure of that. As for knowledge, I think knowledge might become more widespread because the Citadel holds and hoards all the knowledge it can, and it's much like that. Like the
fucking
Library of,
gray rats.
I know, like the Library of Alexander, Alexandria, unfortunately burned down because of a stupid asshole's mistake. And it was burned down several times, and we lost so much information that it's probably set us back so many thousands of years. Maybe we could hypothesize that might happen to the Citadel, but having such prominent bibliophiles as main characters like Sam and Tyrion and stuff, having such a hardcore love of knowledge and of making things and healing and stuff like that, they're going to see that as important, and being at the front of the game as well. I can see knowledge becoming a more widespread thing instead of being just a master's thing, because knowledge is controlled so that there's a certain pecking order of things, and even the most wealthy of lords don't have a certain education that a maester would have unless they went out their way to do so, like Tyrion, like Rhaegar, like Sam, and things like that. And books are frowned upon if you're a male heir, or and things like that. It's not necessarily if you come from a certain family, like the Tarleys, and you've seen Tarley dad, worst dad of the year, just shun his son's intelligence. Like that's a poor example of building on what you have. Even if you have, there's a lot of things already that might disappear into nothing. Much like the Library of Alexandria. I would like to see it open up, and it would further that. And you've got people like Davos who don't know how to read, were taught by a small girl who shut away because nobody really wanted to look at her because she had that grayscale deformity on her face and she looked peculiar. She read and read and read all these stories and eventually got him to read, and so he can convey information as Hand of the King to Stannis, the Manus. Not dead in the books, by the way, not yet. And he's got that information. He took that information to decide for himself what he was going to do and turn tail and go north. Fair enough, Melisandre's in tow, but he is up to something. And knowledge is power, and if Davos hadn't learned to read via Shireen, we might not have had the information passed to him and all those events happen. Knowledge is power in a certain way. Power has to be separated from certain levels of society. But I believe that it probably would, if the Citadel's not burned to the ground, that it would be made more available.
Yeah, I think it's going down. Just like it mirrors so much the Library of Alexandria. I'm making a video on it, so I'm not gonna spoil my video too much because y'all wouldn't watch it then. Yeah. But I do have a couple of comments. One from Bubba Husky, which is pretty funny. Religion is always going to be a thing. It's the cheapest hobby that exists. It takes a good deal of money to skydive or water ski, but one needs not a penny to believe. That's a very good point. And Gerald Raleigh has interesting thought. Uh, he thinks Melisandre is going to bring the fiery hand to the north. Davos is going to grab Heartsbane and plunge it into her heart, and he's going to remove it as Lightbringer. What do you think about that?
I'm down for that. I'd
That
love
would
to
be
see
cool.
that. If that was happened in the show, that would be amazing. I think I've seen a recent video from someone. I can't remember who it is, so please forgive me for forgetting. But Lightbringer isn't just one sword; it's many swords. It's many people. It's not necessarily a weapon. It's a bunch of other things. So that pointing that out there, I think that's really, really an awesome point. I'd love to see that happen. I do believe there's a secret about Davos that we do not know, and I've been saying this for years as well, because George R. R. Martin told the actor who plays Davos a secret about him, and he's kept stuff. And I love that guy. He's an amazing actor. He's kept quiet about it for so long. I think Davos will make it right to the fucking end of this story, and I think Davos will be one of the greatest heroes that comes out of this whole saga, out of this whole thing, hands down, because he has survived everything. He's a ripe old age within his time, right? And everyone's just dismissing the old man and not listening to him. He said that on like season 7. Yeah, I'm just ignore the old man who's lived to a ripe old age, and survived all these things. Like he's missing fingers, and he survived like King's Landing and being uh a smuggler, and he's done it. He's done a bad thing for a good thing, and he's gone up and up and up and up and up the ranks. And
40 days and
still,
40 nights.
yeah, and he still hasn't been killed off yet, or that. I think there's something special about Davos that we just don't know, and he doesn't know yet.
I think Davos is going to matter in the end. I do think Davos is going to survive, definitely. Um, uh, Troll alert. I just going to throw this out there. I think that Nissa and Zora High is red herring. I think it's
Yeah.
hit on too much to um, I think it's hit on too much to be as important as the importance that it's giving to. And don't get me wrong, I sit here and I watch creators who talk about Azor Ahai and Nissa and all this, and I eat it up. I sit here for hours and hours and hours. But I think it's a red herring. I don't think anybody's going to sacrifice anybody with a sword.
Well, I think someone's going to get sacrificed, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to be by a sword. I think there's going to have to be a sacrifice at the end. I don't even know about a ritualistic sacrifice, but
See, I've always seen the prophecy of Nissa and the sword as thing as a sexual innuendo, because that's what it is. Like if you take John and Danny, they've already did it, right? Basically the sword has always been a phallic symbol, as it were, male masculinity. And it's also represented by like the pentacle. So if you look at a pentagram or Wiccan pentagram, so you've got there's also this within Christianity as well. You've got the cross and you've got the Holy Grail, which often is a cup. But if you want to go by Da Vinci, like Da Vinci Code standards, then the cup is actually the shape of the uterus, and that is also one of the shapes that creates the star for the pentacle. So that's
the cup, the
feminine.
blade, the coin, and the what am I forgetting? The staff.
Yeah, and then you've got the pentacle, which is the point, and also the sword. So they intersect with each other. So there is that. So you could say that Danny's womb is the heart, and John's dick is the sword, and he'll plunge it right into her. Plunge it, and create Lightbringer, which is a person, and then George also represents swords with people as well. So you could take it on that note, having excessive sexual connotations, but also deep religious connotations in that as well, through various different concepts.
So John, like Bubba Husky says, do you think Azor Ahai is like a tool of the faithful lore just to keep its followers in check, so to speak, in a sense?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. If you look at American history, when African slaves were brought over here, one of the first things that were instilled upon them was faith in our Middle Eastern, not Western, by the way, Middle Eastern deity. And that whole hope of coming up and moving up was what really brought it brought us some of the greatest music. I mean, you listen to some amazing gospel music, and I don't care what you believe, it moves you. It fucking moves you. I don't care what your beliefs are. I don't care. You listen to good gospel music and it moves you because it was written from the from the point of view of those people who were oppressed, and one of the first things they were given was this whole concept in deity, which was entirely different from what they were raised with, which was a polytheistic concept. And it's this deity that's going to lift you out of slavery. It's Moses. It's, you know, when Moses was in Egypt land, let my people go. And that's my thought on what Raylor is. I think it's a way to keep the plebes in their space, keep them grinding the bread, keep them hitting the hammers.
Very good point. Very good point. Hitting hammers is the next question from Bubba Husky is, do you think it's merely coincidental that the messianic figure of a religion from a slave culture is a smith? They almost planetos-wide symbol of hard work, which I'm assuming he's talking about the faith of the seven.
Oh, okay. So we're going to talk about the 7 elephants in the room?
Yeah, I guess we'll segue now.
Because there are 7.
There are.
And, okay, so there are correlations first to, I mean, it would be a septinity as opposed to a trinity, but there are correlations immediately to Christianity, specifically as a practicing Catholic. I recognize the relations to the Holy Trinity, where there are different facets of the same being. You know, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Whereas we have the Father, Mother, Maiden, Crone. Father, Mother, Maiden, Crone, Stranger, Smith, and Warrior. Right? Did I get them all?
Yep.
I think I got them all. But it's the same concept of this multifaceted God. a lot of people think of the uh, religion of the seven as polytheism, but it's really a monotheistic concept with polyconceptual facets.
Right, because the seven are all one in a sense, like the Holy
It,
Trinity is all one in Christianity.
right. And so, that's a lot different than an actual polytheistic religion, which, when it comes down to it, Planetos, if you like to use that term, doesn't really have a polytheistic religion. They have an animistic religion with the old gods, where every tree has a soul and is a god. Every animal has a soul and is its own god. Every river, et cetera, et cetera. And then they have the dualistic religion of the Rilorites. They have the dualistic, somewhat monotheistic, but semi-dualistic religion of the Iron Islands. And then they have the monotheistic with different aspects religion of the seven.
Yeah, and even the Dothraki are a dualistic religion, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, and I need to read up on the Dothraki, because thank God we aren't talking about them today, because I haven't read up and studied properly, and I don't like to be unprepared. But yeah, there's the stallion, and then there's the death. And the Dothraki, I mean, that goes back to virility culture. Uh, it goes back to a lot of your really early Mesopotamian religions, where you have a god of fertility and you have a god of death, and you may have some other deities like hanging around on the fringes, but your big things are you have the god of life and the god of death. You have the Fisher King, and you have the Great Bull.
Yeah, I would like to just say on the Dothraki, you have the Great Stallion and the Mother of Mountains, and Georgie
Okay,
Jedi and Bubba Husky help me out with that, and also the Nightlands is like their heaven.
yeah, you're correct. There are three. So there's the male virility, there's the female virility, and then there's death. And I mean, I guess when one would conceptualize it, and this is my pocket sociologist coming out, but when one would conceptualize it, those are the three deities that a society or group would come up with, as that you would have male virility, female virility, and death, which is
Right.
in a way the opponent of the other two.
And I know we
Because they
covered
have
this
the
earlier. Oh, I'm
Ghost
sorry. Go ahead.
Sea and no, there's that Dothraki myth about in a shy, the ghost grass, and
Yeah,
eventually it's going to take over the entire world.
yeah. Well, we still don't know what's happening in a shy. I'm gonna have a stream on that. But we do have a question from the chat. I think we kind of talked about it in the beginning, but LMR might have missed it. So I'll ask you one more time. Do you think a new religion will be invented?
I do not. I think that I think there will be a little more interreligious acceptance made in the world after all the shit goes down. I think people will be like, hey, you worship Rayler, you worship the Seven, you worship the old gods, you worship the drowned god. You know what? We all were able to come together and make sure that the long night did not happen. And hey, you you want to stick your face in salt water until you're dead, and then get resuscitated? Cool. You want
Right.
to like the only thing that keeps me from thinking that is that's so touchy feely for GRM to do.
Yeah, well, the thing is, too, is if you think about it, ever since there hasn't really been a clash of religions or a war of a religion, except when the Andals invaded, and then they were spreading the word of the seven. Other than
Well, and the
that, they're
burning of the
not really.
seven at Dragonstone.
Well, yes, but that wasn't necessarily a war against, like, Melisandre is the only one necessarily going to war for a god. Like the other people are going to war for different reasons. All throughout Planetos, they're
Right.
not going to war.
It's not
It's
jihadist or anything.
yeah, it's not like most of our
or
wars have been
Crusadic or
right. But the only one you could say that was on a crusade, and you can equate them, throw some Knights Templar in with the fiery hand and the worshippers of Lore. You could definitely do that. You could also do that with the Andals and their invasion and the Templar Knights and how they went to conquest. And we even have some possible evidence that the Knights Templar made it to America before other, like Christopher Columbus and that did. So,
oh yeah,
yeah,
I've seen that documentary.
like I said, it's possible. I don't know about it yet, but it is interesting. They were everywhere, and they were the first banking system. A lot of people don't know that about the Templars. They would actually hold your money and protect your money, and they would give you a sheet of paper that was like either a check or a money
Which made it
order.
safe to travel.
Mm-hmm. And that's why they ended up being persecuted by the Catholic Church because they were taking money out of their pocket for one, and something else happened. Go ahead.
Okay, so interesting. The King of France persecuted them. Catholic Church happened to, at the time, have a pope who was related to the King of France, and was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll hop on this. I'll say they're a bunch of heretics." Because one of there are a lot of effed up things about the country you and I live in, but separation of church and state, that this is why it's a good thing. Stuff like that. Because at the time,
yeah, exactly.
You could have that kind of thing where the church says, "Hey, these people are heretics," and it could be prosecuted and persecuted by a political figure.
Yeah, and someone just made a good point, and I lost it. Oh yeah, Peter Griffin has a point about the religions. He thinks that they'll come together and fight for the living, and he sadly thinks the religions will become stronger as long as they survive in the end. Which I can see that.
Once again, the closet sociologist. If people get out of some hard shit, they, at least for a little while, have a little more faith.
Right, and let me see if I can find something on this. Let's see. So the bearded priests of the free cities of Norvos are interesting. Bubba was bringing them up. They worship the black goat of Kohora. I think you talked about that, right, or something. And they have the slave soldiers.
So are you gonna? I mean, we can go into all the religions today.
We can just talk. We got about 30 more minutes. We got about 30 more minutes, and then
okay,
it'll be a 2-hour.
Bearded priests.
So, they are a lot like.
Essene.
Let's see. it's interesting. I don't really know where to go with it.
Are you
who do
familiar
think
with
they
the
com-
Essenes?
the Essenes? Yes, yes, a little bit. Go ahead, tell us about them.
So they were very what's the word I'm looking for? A very monastic order of the Hebrew people back around the turn of the millennium, and I'm talking about like 2,000 years ago. In fact, there's some evidence and argument that Joseph, who either was Christ's father or raised Christ or whatever, was in a scene, and they denied themselves everything. Kind of like imagine Benedictine philosophy on steroids,
Oh,
like
okay.
complete self-denial of all things worldly. Now, there are people who throw out that it may have been this Gnostic philosophy, and I don't know about that. We don't know much about their philosophy, but a lot is known about their lifestyle, and their lifestyle was essentially a denial of self. They did wear hareskin shirts. They did separate men from women. They did have an iconoclastic society where anything and everything was a sin.
I tell you what.
And
Since we
anything
got
of this,
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, and anything of this world was a sin, and that was the way that they thought. And I think that I think it's kind of a correlation.
So, Lauren, have you heard any of this, and do you have any thoughts you want to throw in before I segue into a little bit of the drowned god? And we're going to tease kind of with that, and then for the next one of these we do. I know John wants to talk about the drowned god for 2 hours.
I've heard nothing of this because I had to run downstairs and store my dinner, as I had mentioned to you, because it's been a few hours since I put it on, so it needed a little bit of TLC. So I decided to just go ahead and try attempt to make dumplings to go with it while I was down there quickly. As for what's going on, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just being barefaced honest right now.
Johnny, I have to run to the Jakes. You get to give the synopsis.
Yeah, totally. The host never gets a break, but the guests do.
All right, so we're going to go into the drowned god and similarities to baptism, and I think John stuck his headphones too close to the computer. I'm getting massive reverb here. Let's just kind of go into the Iron Board.
I was like, there's feedback. I can hear myself. Why can I hear myself?
But as far as the drowned god goes, you have lots of baptism type events. That's basically what they do. They're being baptized and they're cleansing themselves to become a new person, so to speak. Lauren, what are your thoughts and comparisons about the drowned god, if you have any?
The drowned god basically reminds me of the Little Mermaid. And another version of like Valhalla as well from Norse mythology. Like everyone who dies as a follower of the drowned god will go down to the watery halls and feast with him forever. Much like the halls of Odin, all the warriors and people that have died an honourable death, as it were. I don't really have much to add about the drowned god. There is a lot there. The baptisms and things like that are very much in line with some Christianity, and for me, it strikes up a lot of imagery from Mormonism, because like I did the whole baptismal thing when I was younger. There's a whole bunch of like Mormon churches over here in the UK. There's one in my town. My nana and my mum happened to be a part of them at one point, and I got my baptism, but I stopped like going when I hit like teenage years, and I've never really looked back per se. I mean, what else are the Ironborn going to follow when they're on a couple of tiny islands on like the far coast of Westeros?
Right. And you also have what's so interesting about it is it's a lot to do with Christianity. There's more stuff there, but I'm gonna let John get into that. But the whole death and rebirth thing, that while being baptized is so symbolic in my opinion. But they are such a rugged and ragged people. But that is one of the oldest religions as well. The Dragon God has been around for a long time, so he would be close to some of the older gods, in my opinion. What are your thoughts there, John?
I had to have one more thing. They also remind me of pirates and how pirates are, and like their tales of Davy Jones's locker. And you've seen in like representations of this in
Yes.
Pirates of the Caribbean and things like that. Or that
Real
you've got that.
pirates, not
Yeah.
fake pirates. Like
No, I
real
know,
pirates.
real pirateers and stuff like that. There's a lot of that where the sea is like a mistress and rules all, and you have to be careful where you sail or it'll take you, and all these things. And you've got the myth of like the giant squid and the krakens coming up from the deep and taking ships down whole, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of that as well. And they are basically pirates. They go off and steal other people's shit, claim people for their own, and wives and money, and gold. Well, not gold, iron. You pay the iron price, and they're living the hard life, the much more basic life than anyone else in Westeros is. So they would more likely be prone to following a simpler god than more like the Faith of Seven or something more complicated. Theirs is simplified, and it is what it is on face value, and underneath it's a certain amount of truth that they have. It's their truth.
Yeah, what did
There's
Duran
something
say
clean
about the
about
Island
how
Island?
dirty it is.
That it was treeless and full of a bunch of very unattractive people. It's a very hard life there. I agree with that. Go ahead. I just had to throw that in. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just saying there's a cleanness in the filth. There's a cleanliness in their filth. I mean, yeah, from a moral, from an ethical perspective, the way the Ironborn live is contemptible. I mean, they rape, they pillage, they plunder, but they don't deny it. They don't gussy it up. They don't put it in a prom dress and take it out. You know, they're like, yeah, this is what we do. We're rapists. We're pillagers. We're murderers. Thieves. I wouldn't use the term thieves. I would use the term robbers. This goes back to my grammar Nazi roots. A thief goes into somebody's house and takes something. A burglar goes into somebody's house and takes something. A robber sticks a gun in your face and takes something. And they're robbers. They're not thieves. Nothing sneaky, nothing subtle, nothing remotely romantic or anything like that about them.
All right. They're a lot of like the Vikings in a sense. They in the beginning when they didn't have a lot of farmland and they didn't have a lot of wealth in their land, and they had to pillage. That's the only way they could get what they needed. Uh, Food was
Or you
scarce,
could
and
switch to barley instead
yeah.
of wheat. I mean, that would have worked too.
They were, well, to be fair, the Vikings, for little as they had, they became some of the world's greatest travelers and
Oh yes.
reached out to every part of the world. And like it's
Oh,
been
yeah.
recently proven that they got to America before Columbus did. One of
Well, not
their
just that. There have been Viking burial sites that have, uh, like coins from India.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like even one of the Vikings became a Frankian king. Like
well, that's
that,
where the Franks came from.
yeah. So like Frankia already had its like royalty and stuff like that, and he ended up getting married into it because he was some sort of Norse kind of royalty as well.
Yeah, wasn't it Rollo Lothbrok from Vikings that became the French king? No, just kidding.
It's something like that. It's in essence something like that. Yeah.
I do want to give
You're
a
gonna
shout
ruin
out.
it for me. I haven't seen that show.
To
Johnny,
Camp. You gotta see that.
you and I can't do any spoilers for Battlestar for Lauren,
Right.
and you and Lauren can't do any spoilers for Vikings for me.
I didn't
I
promise
think
that I
only
would watch
sense.
Battlestar. I said I'd think about it.
I didn't say you should promise to. I just, if you don't, you're gonna miss the best telly that's been put on in the past 20 years.
I don't know. I'll watch it when you get round to watching Fringe, because I believe that's some of the best telly and the best kind of acting that you'll see in
You want me to spit in my
many
hand?
shows.
Oh
You
God.
want me to spit
No,
in my
that's
hand? I
disgusting.
mean,
Just don't do that. That's
you're 2,000
nasty.
miles away.
Battlestar Galactica is a little. I can equate it a good bit to Westworld, Lauren. If you like Westworld, the whole who is who, what is human, what is consciousness, the and even delves into other things. I don't want to spoil you, but yes, it's. I think if you like Westworld, you'll like
What is
it.
God?
Yeah.
Can I be honest about spoilers for 1 second? I actually like spoilers because it gets me more interested in the thing as a whole. So if somebody tells me one tidbit of information that is totally like up there, it will make me more likely to watch something or read something or go into it and find out more about it, and more about 9 times out of 10, I'll end up watching it or end up reading it, and I'll see what they've said to me, but I'll see a far lot more than what's been described to me. And that makes the experience a lot better because no matter if there is spoilers, there's still a certain amount of discovery to be had.
Yeah.
So you're talking general spoilers.
Yeah, just tell her about the Cylons, man.
All right. Cylons were created by man. They rebelled against mankind. And then they figured out a way to make Cylons that looked like people, act like people.
This is sounding like Blade
people.
Runner or its proper title, do cheap dream do robots dream
electric sheep?
of electric sheep? Yeah.
The replicants. Oh, love that. Okay. I think this is a good place to kind of leave off. I'm going to do some shout outs and then I'm going to have you give your final thoughts on everything. This is going to be probably a 3-part series because I'm going to do a whole special on the House of Black and White and the Many-Faced God. Special shout out to AU Pack Mule. Thank you for coming out. Reed Vengeance, thank you for coming out. Just had a stream with her last night. Check out her channel. She's just getting started. She just had her first live stream last night. She's doing great. Al, the Red Sox fan, thanks for coming out, Al. He always does great calls on his channel. He has really good live streams. Lauren's Corner is here. Hey, look at that. Peter Griffin, thanks for showing up, my man. I appreciate it a lot. Dog Sidious is in the chat. He has lots of really good content, especially if you're into Star Wars. He really knows his stuff. Jordy Jedi, thank you so much for coming out, man. I appreciate every one of you coming out. It means so much to me. Cam Pidgeot, new to the channel, but she had a comment I wanted to add. She said, I believe Jerem was raised as a Catholic and abandoned the religion at some point and could be now classified as an atheist. So I think that's very interesting when you're reading Jerem's writings. Bubba Husky, thank you so much. My co-host, Living My Rhapsody, came out to support me today. My other co-host, Mackenzie L. Burns. Ben Hogan joined us today. Cindy Sammy. I think I saw Terry T. J.R. Rowley. Thank you so much, my friends. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think that is everyone. So, and John left us. Maybe he'll come back. Lauren, give me your thoughts and any inspirational things you would like to say to the people out there today.
Well, as it goes to the religions of Westeros, I think they're going to continue as they are, but evolve slowly. And with the changing tide of power and politics and the growth of money as a religion itself, we might see more of a reflection of our own world within that society, unless they have certain amount of people that overrides the other people's point of view. But again, democracy is democracy. Will we see the death of some religions? Probably, but even those will not be forgotten.
I got cut out just for a minute. I'm sorry.
That's okay, John. Don't worry about it. So yeah, it's end of the day, that is that. But as for inspirational things, just smile, get up, do your thing, and do what you want to do. Don't be concerned about what everyone else wants you to do. Because if in your gut you feel that's right, then it's probably is. And not to sound like Melisandre here making a mistake, but we all make mistakes, and like we're infallible and fallible at the same time, and we're human, and that is it. And at the core of religion, there is humanity, as there is gods. We have gods inside ourselves, and that is our own free will, our own notions, emotions, honesty, truth, lies, good, bad, dark, light. Valar, motherfucking Gulas.
And John, any final thoughts on the stream? We're wrapping up now. Any final thoughts you'd like to add about religion? Any motivational quotes you want to give someone? Anything you want to tell someone to read or watch and where they can find you or whatnot? I have everyone linked below, so check everyone out. They do fantastic content. If you like music, you'll like John's channel. If you like poetry, you'll love Lauren's channel. And if you love hard-hitting interviews, you got to go check out Lauren's channel. She killed me on the first one. Go watch me cry like a little baby. John, go ahead. Take it away, my friend. And maybe he's not there. John St. Baptiste, are you there, buddy? I think he's, we might have lost him for just a second. Either way, I'm gonna have to go ahead and close out. Yep.
His ghetto set up has shanked him.
So go check out John St. Baptiste's channel. Go check out Lauren's Corner. And I will be streaming again in 3 hours. So come check out me and Milt K and Mackenzie L. Burns as we talk about the geology of Winterfell. And Milt is a geophysicist, and he's going to show us how everything works through a PowerPoint presentation and make me look very dumb. So thank you so much, everyone in the chat, and thank you, Lauren. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Johnny. And other John, but he's left. So
that's right. And we will all see you again very soon. There'll be another one of these. Take care, everyone.